MLB draft classes with the numerous rounds are bound to bring out a few gems, and not always near the top. But no draft to this point has brought out as many gems as the 1985 draft. With multiple faces of college baseball, this draft brought numerous All-Stars, MVPs, Cy Youngs, and Hall of Famers, and set the future of baseball. So let's see how the 1985 draft produced the best class to this point.
Totally sports-esque. Major league.
In order for this to be the best draft class, it has to result in the players actually signing, which is why the 1982 draft really created this. That draft saw Shun Dunston as the first pick, and Dwight Gooden was taken at 5. But what is really notable about this draft is the players taken in later rounds that did not sign. That includes Rafael Palmeiro, Bobby Witt, B.J. Surhoff, Will Clark, Randy Johnson, Barry Larkin, Bo Jackson, and Barry Bonds. That meant all those players bypassed the chance to start their major league journey out of high school, and they decided to go to college. And that naturally created a great era of college baseball. And in terms of at least putting college baseball on the map, it was the most important. And the reason for that was 2 of those players who did not sign, and both ended up at Mississippi State, and Will Clark and Rafael Palmeiro. And this duo went by the name of Thunder and Lightning. Both became All-Americans and led Mississippi State to the College World Series in 1985. Though they fell short, what these two really did was put college baseball on the map. College baseball was not much of a big deal, and was practically never shown on TV. But with the addition of ESPN, this gave the sport a chance to be seen, and that team led the way. But there were plenty of great teams and players past them in this time. Barry Larkin could have played football at Michigan, but instead decided to only play baseball. He would make the All-American team twice, and led Michigan to the College World Series twice. Bo Jackson did play football and baseball at Auburn, and of course his football career was a much bigger deal, as college football has always been the biggest college sport. But Jackson brought eyes wherever he went. There was also USC, the powerhouse of the 70s, whose big names were multi-sport athletes Jack Del Rio, Rodney Peete, and Randy Johnson, who also played basketball. And there was Mark McGwire, who was named the College Player of the Year in 1984. They did not make the College World Series, but another powerhouse who made the College World Series in 1984 was Arizona State, led by Barry Bonds, setting a record with 7 straight hits in the College World Series. And what that set up for was a great Olympic team. The 1984 Olympics in LA were the first to have baseball in the program, though it was a demonstration sport. And the U.S. team was made up of college players such as Will Clark, Barry Larkin, Mark McGwire, B.J. Surhoff, Shane Mack, and Bobby Witt, as the team finished runner-up to Japan. And all this talent made it fun for scouts who had plenty of possible talent to choose from in this coming draft. This was just the 20th draft ever, and it still wasn't a big deal. To that point, most of the top picks were high schoolers. But this year was going to be different. The team with the first pick that year was the Milwaukee Brewers, and most thought B.J. Surhoff, Bobby Witt, or Will Clark would be the first pick. Surhoff hit .392 with 32 home runs over his 3 seasons at North Carolina, and though many thought there were better hitters in the draft, his advantage lied in the fact that he was a catcher, and the Brewers felt they could build a team around a catcher, and for that reason, they selected Surhoff with the first pick, giving him a $150,000 signing bonus. The Giants followed that by quickly taking the Player of the Year in Will Clark, while the Rangers would take Bobby Witt, the best pitching prospect in the draft, while the Reds drafted a franchise player in Barry Larkin at 4th, and the notion that more college players were being selected can be seen in the fact that 11 of the first 12 picks were college players. The only one who wasn't was Kurt Brown at 5th, who did not make it to the majors. But of those 12 picks, there was none bigger than the 6th pick made by the Pittsburgh Pirates with Barry Bonds. Just going by WAR, Bonds is the most successful draft pick in MLB history. Granted, many of the top played before the draft, but the point remains. Along with the point that Bonds had a little bit of nutritional help at the end, but before then, he was still an absolute elite MVP player, and really the name that sets the draft apart. But like every draft, it's the names that come later that really tell the story. Though Rafael Palmeiro was the biggest name in college baseball, he declined some in his junior year, and he fell to the 22nd pick for the Chicago Cubs. And the more fun part is looking at those who fell past the first round. And the biggest here was Randy Johnson, who was selected 36 overall by the Montreal Expos. Obviously, it's easy now to wonder why so many teams pass on him, but Johnson didn't pitch a ton in college, and when he did, he was often wild. But given that he was 6'10", left-handed, and he threw hard, there's always those who believed they could fix him, and it would take a few years to do so. There was also the other late-round All-Stars drafted that every draft brings, like Tino Martinez in the 3rd, David Justice in the 4th, Brady Anderson in the 10th, and Mark Grace in the 24th. Also interesting, Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson were also drafted, but both did not sign. But the last real notable pick was the 574th pick of John Smoltz. He was selected out of high school by the Detroit Tigers, and the reason he was never seen in a Tigers uniform is in 1987, The Tigers traded Smoltz to the Braves for 36-year-old Doyle Alexander. Alexander helped the Tigers win the AL East, but in the long run, this ended up being one of the best trades the Braves ever made. But how did these big-name draft picks do for the team that drafted them? Well, for most, plenty. B.J. Surhoff will play 9 seasons for the Brewers and is one of 12 to record 1,000 hits with the team, and he would be inducted to the Brewers Wall of Honor. Unfortunately for the Brewers, he hit his peak when he became a Baltimore Oriole, transitioning to the outfield, where he would be an all-star, recording 2,326 hits in his career, and despite the lack of accolades, he's had more success than many other first picks. As for the second pick in Will Clark, his prime came right as his career started with the Giants, making 5 All-Star teams, winning 2 Silver Sluggers, and winning NLCS MVP in 1989 as the Giants will win the pennant, later getting his number 22 retired by the team. Then there's Barry Larkin. Considering Pete Rose was a signing, aside from Johnny Bench, this was the Reds' best draft pick in history. He played 18 seasons for the team, with 12 of those seeing him make the All-Star team, 9 of them seeing win a Silver Slugger, 3 a Gold Glove, while winning the 1995 MVP, and helping the Reds win their most recent World Series in 1990. He would then become the first of this draft class to be inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2012, doing so on his 3rd ballot. A little surprising it even took 3, but a lack of those typical milestones hurt, though there was no doubt he should be in. And 2 picks later, going by B-War, the Pirates had their most successful draft pick in Barry Bonds. Bonds' time as a Pirate before he ate his spinach helps him a lot in terms of vowing for his Hall of Fame case. Over his 7 seasons in Pittsburgh, he recorded a B-War of 50.3, hitting 176 home runs, stealing 250 bases, with an 883 OPS. He won 2 MVPs and 3 Gold Gloves from 90 to 92, and looking at 91, he really should have had his first MVP three-peat, hoping the Pirates win the NL East those 3 years, though they fell short of the World Series each time. Bonds would of course then go to the Giants and won his 3rd MVP in his first year there. Then he went on to break the all-time home run record. Amongst position players, he has the highest career B-War, and his 7 MVPs are by far the most. But he's not a part of the Hall of Famers in this class, and that spinach is the reason for that. Everyone in this class coming up in the heat of the steroid era, and plenty appearing on the Mitchell Report. And one of those in this class is Rafael Palmeiro. Palmeiro didn't do much in his time as a Cub, and part of that is because he only played 3 seasons there. He would make the All-Star team with the Cubs in '88, but amidst clubhouse tension, he was traded to the Rangers where he became one of the best in the game. Playing for the Rangers and the Orioles for the next 17 seasons, he made the All-Star game just 3 more times, but he quietly racked up the numbers. And he became the 3rd after Hank Aaron and Eddie Murray to record 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. But in his final games, he was constantly booed by fans, and that's because weeks earlier, he was suspended for 10 games for a positive steroid test, still claiming he received a tainted vitamin B12 shot from Miguel Tejada, as his famous appearance at Congress made him one of the faces of the steroid era. As like Bonds, that is the reason he is not in the Hall of Fame.
Let me start by telling you this. I have never used steroids, period.
And the best pitcher in this draft was obviously Randy Johnson. Like Palmeiro in a Cubs uniform, most don't remember Johnson's first uniform, which was one of the Montreal Expos. Johnson made his debut in 1988, and he threw 4 games with a 3-0 record and a 2.42 ERA, but that would not continue the next season. Over his first 7 games, he was 0-4 with a 6.67 ERA. This led him to being traded to the Seattle Mariners in a 5-pitcher deal. Johnson still struggled some to start in Seattle, and that's mainly because of his control, as he led the American League in walks from 90 to 92. But the one who would change everything for him was actually Nolan Ryan, who suggested that he land on the ball of his foot, and everything changed from there. Johnson would immediately become the game's most dominant pitcher, along with Pedro Martinez, winning his first Cy Young in '95. Then after a short stay with the Astros, he went to the Arizona Diamondbacks and will proceed to win 4 straight Cy Youngs, along with the co-World Series MVP. He pitched 22 seasons in his career, compiling a 103.5 B-WAR to rank 9th all-time amongst pitchers. He would strike out 4,875 batters, second all-time behind his mentor Nolan Ryan, doing so in 1,200 less innings than Ryan. And he would join Barry Larkin in the Hall of Fame 3 years later in 2015, of course doing so on his first ballot. And there was one more player in this class who joined these 2, and he joined the Hall of Fame the same year as Johnson, and that's John Smoltz. As already mentioned, Smoltz was drafted by the Tigers, but he was traded to the Braves, which was a massive mistake. After a rough first season, Smoltz will be named an All-Star in '89, and will continue to be one of the best and most consistent pitchers over the next 2 decades, making multiple All-Star teams and showing up in the postseason, throwing 209 innings with an ERA under 3. His best season being in 1996, when he threw the most innings, won the most games, and recorded the most strikeouts at 276, as he would win the Cy Young. And interesting about Smoltz, for 4 seasons after his Tommy John surgery, he was a closer, making 2 All-Star teams and setting the NL saves record in 2002 at 55, becoming the only pitcher in MLB history to win 200 games and record 150 saves, as he would make the Hall of Fame in his first ballot in 2015, just like Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez. That marking 3 Hall of Famers in this class, that behind the 1976, 77, which all saw 4 Hall of Famers. Noted that Ozzie Smith was drafted in both 76 and 77, but didn't sign until 77. What you can say for the 85 draft is that there could one day be 5 Hall of Famers, if things change in the Hall of Fame voting, honestly referring to those who use steroids. If not Roger Clemens, then Barry Bonds should be the first known steroid user inducted into the Hall of Fame, and if he gets in, then you probably have to put Palmeiro in. But besides just the accolades, at this moment, the 1985 class is still statistically the best. The only class to record a combined 900 B WAR is 1985, recording a 979.1 B WAR. That's over 100 more than the second highest recorded by the 1989 class at 873.9. Granted, it helps allowing at the player with the highest B WAR for position player in history, and the 9th highest of any pitcher, to go with 2 other Hall of Famers, and one who has all the numbers of a first ballot Hall of Famer. But aside from just those top guns, this draft had many really good players. B.J. Surhoff, Will Clark, Walt Weiss, Greg Jeffries, Joey Cora, Tino Martinez, Bobby Thigpen, David Justice, Jeff Brantley, Brady Anderson, Mike Stanley, and Mark Graves were all drafted and signed, and would all become All-Stars. Clark, a 6-time All-Star, who some feel deserves more consideration for the Hall of Fame. And what may be surprising to some, Mark, the slump buster Graves, was actually the hit king of the 1990s, and someone I recently made a video about. It was a draft that had a lot of hype, and lived up to it across the board. It will be hard to top, but as scouting has gotten better, there's been recent drafts that are already close to it. 2002 has 2 future Hall of Famers in Zach Greinke and Joey Votto, along with Cole Hamels, John Lester, Russell Martin, Brian McCann, and Prince Fielder. 2005 had 14 All-Stars, though it's hard to see any making the Hall of Fame. And the next year was loaded with pitching talent near the top, including Kershaw, Tim Lincecum, and Max Scherzer. 2009 is carried by Mike Trout, but Zach Wheeler, Paul Goldschmidt, and Nolan Arenado are all possible Hall of Famers. And the most successful draft of the 2010s, at least at this point, comes from 2011. There have already been 30 All-Stars and 2 Cy Young winners, with first pick Garrett Cole and Blake Snell, along with an MVP in Mookie Betts, who was drafted in the 5th round. There's also the late Jose Fernandez, who very well could have made it 3 Cy Young winners, as Cole, Betts, and Lindor appear to be on track for the Hall of Fame, while there's plenty still to come. If there's any class that can challenge 1985, it's 2011. But something the 1985 class has is that it's one that seemed to change things. It was right after college baseball finally gained some national presence, making the top picks almost all from college, known to many unlike previous years. And it's something like that influenced future prospects to go the college route instead of going straight from high school, which doesn't always work out in both ways. But like many drafts before and after did, this draft really brought the faces of this era. Numerous All-Stars, MVPs, and Cy Young winners, they became some of the players that defined these next 2 decades of baseball. As 16 years after the draft, the NL MVP and Cy Young winner for 2 straight years were both from the 85 draft. Drafts that have taken place, and ones in the future will challenge this class, but has influence like no other. And one thing we'll always have is the most successful guys named Barry drafted in one class. Hopefully you liked this video, and if so, please consider liking and subscribing for new videos every week. Thank you.